A prophecy was a warning, rebuke, and encouragement. This is the last speech of Jacob before he dies to his 12 children, and it includes prophecies about each one of them, with some of them has a rebuke, some of them has a warning, and some with blessings, and others with encouragement. So we're going to go over them one by one. And thank you for watching, for joining No Crown in Heaven for Bible Knowledge, studying Genesis verse by verse. We are in chapter 49, and next episode we're going to be in chapter 50. And remember, after we finish Genesis, we're going to take 3 or 4 episodes or videos putting Christianity and Islam side by side. If you know somebody interested in this topic, let them tune into it, or maybe hit the bell. If you have a Muslim that you know, you're more than welcome to invite them to watch these videos. The gospel will be presented. With that out of the way, let's go into Genesis 49 and start the study. In chapter 48, Joseph brought his 2 sons to see his father before he dies. He heard that he was ill, and so he brought his 2 sons to see their grandfathers. And then Jacob blessed them and gave prophecies about Ephraim and Manasseh, and he gave Ephraim the more blessings, and to become before Manasseh. Manasseh was the firstborn, but we talked about that in the last episode. So here, after the meeting between Joseph, his sons, and Jacob, verse 1, Jacob will call the rest of his children together, so he would give them that final speech, which is a prophecy. Genesis 49, verse 1, and Jacob called his sons and said, "Gather together, that I may tell you that shall befall you in the last days. Gather together and hear, you sons of Jacob, and listen to Israel your father. Reuben, you are my firstborn, my might, and the beginning of my strength, the excellency of dignity, and the excellency of power. Unstable as water, you shall not excel, because you went up to your father's bed. Then you defiled it. He went up to my couch." So this is Reuben, the firstborn, and now he's saying, "You're my firstborn, you're my might, so you should have been my right hand. You should have been my strength and the one who would lead the clan into the right way." So in verse 3, the excellency of dignity and the excellency of power, they were like available to you. But here is the second part, verse 4, unstable as water, you shall not excel. So although he had all these opportunities as a firstborn, you shall not excel. And when we go through the history of the nation of Israel, there was no prophets from Reuben's tribe. There was no king, and there was no judge. So they did not excel. They have not been a leading tribe in any way during the history of the nation of Israel. So that is the fulfillment of his prophecy. But regarding Reuben himself, unstable as water, you shall not excel, because you went up to your father's bed. So I believe it was in chapter 35 when it mentioned that Reuben slept with Bilhah, which is one of Jacob's concubine, and so that's why now he's rebuking him here, and he's giving him the consequences of his act. There is consequences in our actions even before we become to Christ. When we come to Christ, all our sins are forgiven. However, whatever deed has been done in the past, there is consequences that we have to carry, and it does affect the future of our lives, and we have to live with that, and we have to live with that godly and make things right. So here, because he slept with Bilhah, the consequences, he's not going to excel in anything. Unstable as water. So let's go to James chapter 1, the famous passage. Start with verse 5. If any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask of God, who gives to all liberally and without reproach, and it will be given to him. But let him ask in faith, with no doubting, for he who doubts is like a wave of the sea, driven and tossed by the wind. For let not that man suppose that he will receive anything from the Lord. It's the same situation here. Unstable as water, or as the wave of the sea, will not receive anything from the Lord, will not excel. You will not receive the wisdom that you're asking God for, or the guidance. Because double-minded, it comes to verse 8, he is double-minded man, unstable in all his ways. So that was the situation of Reuben. He was unstable, double-minded, and that's why he couldn't excel. You know, when you're double-minded, you want to do this and you want to do something else, you cannot finish that or this, and you will not excel in anything. But if you're focused on one thing, you will accomplish that. If you're focused on ungodly thing, you will accomplish that, and you will succeed to be ungodly. And if you're focused on being godly and work on your life, then you will succeed in that. But and unstable, it will not succeed in either. And that was the situation of Reuben. And that was the consequences of his action. The other thing, that his action was actually a sexual immorality. Not only fornication, but incest, because Bilhah was considered his father's wife. So let's read 1 Corinthians 6:18, which is, it gives more indication of why he is not going to excel in anything. Flee sexual immorality. Every sin that a man does is outside the body, but he who commits sexual immorality sins against his own body. So the consequences that we have to face in our future for any sin we commit, it's kind of, you can make things right, you can fix it. You know, if you owe somebody money and you took advantage of them, you can pay them back. If you lied to somebody, you can come clean. If you hated somebody. But sexual immorality, you sin against your body, you're making some kind of a destruction, and the consequences sometimes is severe, and it's different than other sins. As the Bible here, every sin that a man does is outside the body, but he who commits sexual immorality sins against his own body. So that's what he did, and that's the result of his action, being unstable and committing sexual immorality. Make him did not excel in anything. So the first one talks about sexual immorality, which is Reuben. Here is a second, and each case represents a certain situation for us as believers, a certain temptation or a certain condition that we struggle with. So we take these as a rebuke, as a warning, maybe as an encouragement, each one of us according to what we struggle with. If somebody struggles with sexual sin, or ungodly relationship, living with your boyfriend or girlfriend without being married, or homosexuality, all these sexual immorality, it's a sin against your own body, and it has a severe consequences. God will forgive all that, but we will have to face the consequences of these. Now come to Simon and Levi. Verse 5, Simon and Levi are brothers. Instrument of cruelty are in their dwelling place. Let not my soul enter their council. Let not my honor be united with their assembly. For in their anger they slew a man, and in their self-will they hamstring an ox. Cursed be their anger, for it is fierce, and their wrath, for it's cruel. I will divide them in Jacob and scatter them in Israel. So these two, obviously, the story when Dinah was raped with Shechem, and they told them, you have to be circumcised, the whole city. And on the third day, while they were in their own pain, they went and slaughtered all the men in Shechem, the city. And Shechem was the son of the king of the city, so they slaughtered everybody because of their anger. So this is a situation of somebody's cannot control their anger. The Bible speaks of anger, and the result of the anger, again, James chapter 1 verse 20, for the wrath of man does not produce the righteousness of God. You can be angry about what happened to your sister, but if this anger is a righteous anger, your action will be a righteous action. But if your anger is controlled by your own flesh, it's always gonna result into ungodly unrighteousness. The wrath of man does not produce righteousness of God, the righteousness of God. It produces unrighteousness. So that was the situation with Simon and Levi, because of their action murdering all these people, because of their anger that is not controlled by God. So here is a rebuke for them. And then in verse 7, the last part of verse 7, I will divide them in Jacob and scatter them in Israel. And that's what happened. Simon, the tribe of Simon, they were giving a part within the tribe of Judah. So the tribe of Judah was in the south, and a small part was given to Simon, but they were actually scattered among other tribes. Levi became the priestlyhood tribe, so they did not inherit any land. They were scattered all over the kingdom, and they were given 48 cities to live in, 2 cities, I believe, or 4 cities in each tribe territory. So those priests will practice the teaching and the ceremonial things for the people of that particular tribe. But the Levite tribe was actually scattered, and they didn't inherit any land. So that is the result for their anger that was not controlled by God. And that's when we live a life with we burst into anger and we say things we shouldn't say, and we act in a way that we shouldn't be acting this way. It produces unrighteousness. Verse 8 is for Judah. We're probably not going to touch on each one of them, but Judah probably is the most important one, because this is the chosen tribe to bring the Messiah from. And so we're going to read these verses about Judah and go over it. Verses 8 through 12. Judah, you are he whom your brothers shall praise. Your hand shall be on the neck of your enemies. Your father's children shall bow down before you. Judah is a lion's whelp. From the prey, my son, you have gone up. He bows down, he lies down as a lion, and as a lion who shall rouse him. The scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor a lawgiver from between his feet, until Shiloh comes, and to him shall be the obedience of the people, binding his donkey to the vine, and his donkey is called to the choice vine. He washed his garment in wine, and his clothes in the blood of grapes. His eyes are darker than wine, and his teeth whiter than milk. So why Judah is praised and chosen to have the Messiah to come from? Because it says the scepter shall not depart from Judah, and speaking of the lion, speaking of washing his garment in wine and his clothes in blood, the blood of grapes, that's a prophecy of Jesus. While Judah actually is the one who came up with the idea to sell Joseph for 20 pieces of silver. Why shall we kill him? What will we get if we kill him? Let's just sell him and get the money. So this is a picture of somebody who repented, because we went over all that in previous episodes when Joseph's brothers came to buy grain, and Joseph, who was, despite he didn't recognize him, was giving them test after test to see if their heart changed. And then in the last trip, while they're going back, he put the cup, his own cup, in Benjamin's sack and sent him, and then they ran after them and said, oh, you stole my cup, and bring him back and you will become my slave, and the rest of you, you can go. And that was another test by Joseph. And at that point, Judah stood up and had a long speech with Joseph, not knowing he's Joseph, and he offered himself to become slave to redeem Benjamin. So it shows that he has a change of heart. He has become a different man from 20 years earlier, before this event, or even 22 years. So because of his repentance and true change in his life, that resulted into offering himself to redeem his brother instead of selling his brother for 20 pieces of silver. So that's the complete opposite. The repentance that results into a change. It's not, oh, I believe in Jesus, I am forgiving, and there was no change in my life. No, this a conversion that's produced fruits. And that's why he is praised. He is chosen, his tribe chosen to be the one who bring the Messiah to the world, and giving this description, and he's blessed. And the part here in verse 11, he washed his garment in wine and his clothes in the blood of grapes. Jesus, in the judgment day, it speaks that he would, in Revelation, that the vines would be brought, and it will be, people stand on the vine with their feet, and the juice will come up. It's an explanation of the judgment of the unrighteous, ungodly, and Jesus himself is the one who's performing this judgment over them. We'll come to that when we come to Revelation, God knows when, but that's a representation of Christ here. His eyes are darker than wine, and his teeth whiter than milk. There is also verses speaks of the beauty and the colors of the Jesus when he appears in Revelation in the last days. That's about Judah here. So we're gonna skip Zebulun, and we'll go to verse 14. Issachar is a strong donkey lying down between two burdens. He saw that rest was good and that the land was pleasant. He bowed his shoulder to bear a burden and became a band of slaves. So this is speaking of somebody lazy. He's lazy. Saw that rest was good. Oh, I'm gonna take a break, 15 minutes, and that will be 30 minutes, and whatever. Okay, I'll do it later. That's mentality and that's attitude. So he was a lazy person and became a band of slaves. And the fact that this tribe in the future would be attacked so many times and taken captivity or taken overcome and being ruled by other nations, and that happened in the future of the nation of Israel many times. We're not going to go over these events in details because we don't have the time to do so. Verse 16, Dan shall judge his people as one of the tribes of Israel. Dan shall be a serpent by the way, a viper by the path, that bites the horse's heels, so that its rider shall fall backward. So here is two different things about Dan. Dan shall judge his people. Samson was from the tribe of Dan, and he was the last judge in the book of Judges. So Dan shall judge his people and one of the tribes of Israel, as one of the tribe of Israel. Dan shall be a serpent by the way, a viper by the path, that bites the horse's heel, so that its rider shall fall backward. So the tribe of Dan introduced idolatry into the kingdom of Israel, the northern kingdom, in the latter days in the kingdom. After the division between the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom, the tribe of Dan introduced the idolatry, and that was considered like a snake biting a horse's heel, and the horse obviously will jump and the rider would fall backward. So that was a reason for the whole kingdom of Israel, the northern kingdom, to go into idolatry and to fall into captivity into the Assyrian later on. That's for Dan. And then verse 18, he just says, I have waited for your salvation, O Lord. So he's coming to his last few minutes in his life, and he's probably feeling that he's about to die, and I have waited for your salvation, O Lord. This is just a crying out for somebody longing to meet the Lord. Obviously, the Old Testament saints, they didn't go to meet with the Lord. They went to be in the bosom of Abraham. We talked about that in the past. So we're gonna pass the rest of the tribes because nothing really, you just read it and you can study it on your own. But we're gonna go to verse 22 for Joseph, and this is all blessings and all praise because of obviously the life of Joseph, that he lived a godly life throughout all his life. Verse 22, Joseph is a fruitful buff by a well. His branches run over the wall. A fruitful buff, when the branches go over the wall, like it's even blessing others. So he's speaking of Joseph's life is fruitful in blessing others. The archers have bitterly grieved him, shot at him, and hated him, but his bow remained in strength, and the arms of his hands were made strong by the hands of the mighty God of Jacob. From there is the shepherd, the stone of Israel, by the God of your father who will help you, and by the Almighty who will bless you with blessings of heaven above, blessing of the deep that lies beneath, blessings of the breasts and of the womb. The blessings of your father have excelled the blessing of my ancestors up to the utmost bound of the everlasting hills. They shall be on the head of Joseph and on the crown of the head of him who was separate from his brothers. Obviously, all these blessings on Joseph because of his righteous life, and is speaking of the archers have bitterly grieved him, shot at him, and hated him, speaking obviously of the 10 brothers who betrayed him. And now in verse 25, also speaking of blessings of heaven above, blessings of the deep that lies beneath, blessing of the breasts and of the womb. That's speaking on of 3 different blessings: spiritual blessings, material blessings, and emotional blessings. So blessing of heaven above, these are the spiritual blessings. When you live godly, God will guide you, will show himself to you. You will have intimate relationship with him, and you will have spiritual blessings. The fruit of the gifts of the Holy Spirit will come into your life. The fruit of the Spirit will show in your life. Blessing of the deep that lies beneath, this is material blessings. God is our provider. Even if we lack or not lack, he's our provider, and he keeps us alive, and he supply all our needs, not our wants, according to his riches in glory. And then blessing of the breasts and of the womb. These are emotional blessings, because the breasts is speaking of love, and the womb is speaking of having children. So these are emotional blessed because you have a family that, and you live in loving environment, a loving family. So these blessings that he's giving to Joseph are spiritual blessings, materialistic blessings, and emotional blessings. So we'll go to Benjamin. Benjamin in verse 27. Benjamin is a ravenous wolf. In the morning he shall devour the prey, and at the night he shall divide the spoil. Now the tribe of Benjamin were known of their own mighty men. They were fighters, and they provided the most numbers of men to go to battles. They were men of war. So it says, in the morning it shall devour a prey, and at night shall divide the spoil. We're going to read the rest of the chapter. It's probably mostly self-explanatory. All these are the 12 tribes of Israel, and this is what their father spoke to them, and he blessed them. He blessed each one according to his own blessing. Then he charged them and said to them, I am to be gathered to my people. Bury me with my fathers in the cave that is in the field of Ephron the Hittite, in the cave that is in the field of Machpelah, which is before Mamre, in the land of Canaan, which Abraham bought with the field of Ephron the Hittite as a position for burial place. There they buried Abraham and Sarah his wife. There they buried Isaac and Rebekah his wife. And there I buried Leah. The field and the cave that is there were purchased from the sons of Heth. And when Jacob had finished commanding his sons, he drew his feet up into the bed and breathed his last and was gathered to his people. And that's the end of chapter 49. Chapter 49 reminds me of Revelation 2 and 3, the 7 letters to the 7 churches, that they have a rebuke, warning, and blessings, same as we see here, each church according to their actions and their obedience to God and to Jesus, received that either a warning, do this, or I come and remove your I don't remember what was it exactly, but there was a rebuke and there was a warning to do something, and there were also a blessing for those who were obedient. And here the same Jacob is giving to his sons and for the future of their generation. Thank you. We'll continue one more chapter in Genesis. Stay tuned. Please subscribe and hit the bell to get notified. Thank you, and God bless you. See you next time.